Hey, thanks for joining us here today. We are working with pelvic mobility. Pelvic mobility is a huge factor in how well the body moves and feels, especially in relation to low back troubles, knee troubles, shoulder problems, headaches, necks that feel kinked, that can't twist and turn very well. A lot of that goes back to a pelvis that is rigid and glued. Now, I don't have a model here in front of me, but if you can imagine, your pelvis is formed by two hip bones called the ilia that connect in the front of the pubic symphysis and in the back along the sacrum. The sacrum is a triangular shaped bone that ends in your tailbone, starts at the very bottom of your lumbar spine, your low back spine. When the pelvis doesn't move in all of its joints, again, we tend to get rigid and stuck above and below the pelvis, specifically low back issues, shoulder issues, neck headaches, and knee problems. So today we're working with some pelvic movement that's going to look very, very small and subtle. These aren't big movements. There is actually a self-treatment device called a pelvic clock. Welcome to check that out on Amazon. I have no affiliation whatsoever with it, but it is a self-treatment tool that basically talks you through exactly what we're going to do today. If you're lying on your floor, on your back, with your knees bent, and imagine a clock, like you're laying on a clock underneath you. 12 o'clock is going to be at the top of your waistband. 6 o'clock is going to be at your tailbone. 3 o'clock is going to be at your right hip. 6 o'clock is going to be at your left hip. Now let's just test those motions. Again, these are subtle, small movements, but go ahead and tip your pelvis up toward 12 o'clock. And then tip your pelvis down to 6 o'clock. So you're basically rocking back and forth, back to 12 o'clock and back to 6 o'clock. Rocking back and forth between 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, waistband and tailbone. Keep doing that, just feeling what that's like. Now you do want to keep your sacrum mostly connected to the ground, so you're kind of rocking on your sacrum. Subtle movements, 12 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Make this as small as you need. You might even just imagine the movement. Become familiar with the baseline there. And then just let your pelvis come back to neutral. That's kind of the center of the clock. And then tip a bit towards your right, toward 3 o'clock. And then over to your left, toward 6 o'clock. Straight across in a horizontal movement, rocking across your sacrum. Feeling what that's like to move from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock. Kind of giving you a baseline of movement. Now you can pause anytime. You don't ever want to push into anything that causes you to cringe, to brace, to resist these movements. But do nudge a bit into exploration. Be curious about what your body can do here. Then go ahead and come back to neutral. Remember those directions, those numbers on your pelvic bowl, your pelvic clock. We're going to come back up to 12 o'clock, tip to 12 o'clock, and then just a tad bit to your right to what would be 11 o'clock. And then back to 12 and 11. 12 and 11. Do this at your own pace, slow breathing, quiet mind. 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock. 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock. With that pelvis tipped up towards your waistband. Then come towards the left, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 12 and 1, 12 and 1. Keep going, kind of imagining that you're making a very small arc there. Not so much horizontal, think a clock face. 12 and 1. And the next time you go back to 12, go past it to 11. So now we're making a bigger arc, 11, 12, and 1. Move through very distinct phases of numbers. 12, 1, 12, 11, 12, 1. Add a bit more. 12, 11, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2. This is our new arc. 2, back to 1, 12, 11, and 10. Back to 11, 12, 1, 2. Back in that arc, even slower if you need to, with your breath, feeling, imagining, visualizing each of those numbers as you move from 10 to 11 to 12 to 1 to 2 and back, regaining control of some pelvic mobility. Not judging, but noticing where things might feel stuck. As you come back across this time from 12 to 1 to 2, when you go back around, add a number on each side. So we've got 3, 2, 1, 12, 11, 10, and 9. You've got the whole top side of that movement. Come back around, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, and 3. That whole top half circle again. 3, 2, 1, 12, 11, 10, and 9. And then back up to 12, 9, 10, 11, 12, and let your pelvis rest back in neutral for a minute. You're going to put your legs out straight and long, wiggle them out. Maybe a little bit of movement, some deep breaths. We're going to do the bottom part of that semicircle. Again, just noticing. You can stop and rest at any time. When the pelvis has been rigid and stuck and glued and immobile for a long time, these might be really small movements. Don't judge your movements here. We're looking to increase by just a little bit every time we do some myofascial self-treatment. So from neutral, let's go back to that 12 and 6 rocking motion. Just feel 12 and 6 and 12 and 6. And maybe ask yourself, is anything different this time? You might be tired. You might feel glitches where you didn't. It might feel smoother. I don't know what you'll notice here, but just be curious. What do I feel? Then when you get down to 6, one of those next times, just hang there at 6 o'clock, which is tailbone, tipped toward the floor more than the waistband. And then from 6 o'clock, swing just a tad bit to the right to 7 o'clock. And back to 6 and 7 and 6 and 7 and 6. Let this be smooth. And 7 and 6 and 7 and 6, and then 5 over to the left, and 6 and 5 and 6 and 5. Let this be at your own pace. And 6. And one more time from 5 to 6. And then 7, making a little arc. Moving from 7 to 6 to 5. Back and forth between 5 and 6 and 7. One more time between those two numbers. At your own pace. Make sure you're not holding your breath. You want your low back to be relaxed and at ease. Add a number on both sides this time. 6, 5, and 4. 5, 6, 7 and 8. Back to 7, 6, 5, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Again, back and forth between these two numbers. 8 to 4. Being curious, being compassionate, exploring what you feel here. There's no wrong or right way to do this other than forcing, bracing, pushing into pain. We aren't looking to push into pain. Gritting your teeth, making this work. Add a number on each side again. Imagine you're at 6 and come back to 5 and 4 and 3. And then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way over on the right hip. 8, 7, 6, tailbones down. 5, 4, 3, you're on the left hip. Make this semicircle at your own pace. 3, 4, 5, 6, tailbone down. 7, 8, 9, right hip down. Swing all the way through that bottom part of this semicircle at your own pace, being curious about which parts of the sacrum are more or less mobile than others. One more time, all the way from 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, back to 8, 7, 6, and let your pelvis come back to neutral and rest for a moment. Again, you might take your legs long, you might shake them out. This might start to feel really good and flat on your sacrum as it becomes a bit more mobile. Be curious about what your experience is. Let this be easy. Take a break at any time. If you'd like, though, bend your legs one more time. Feel that sacrum kind of flat on the floor. Should be in a neutral position. Explore that motion 12 to 6. Tip your waistband toward the floor. And then the tailbone to the floor at 6 o'clock. All the way back up to 12 o'clock. Noticing what might be different from when you started. Back to 6 o'clock and then neutral. And then tip from 3 o'clock to 9 o'clock. Right hip to left hip in a horizontal line straight across. 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock. Noticing what's different, what's easier. And then from neutral, one more time, we're going to come up to 12 o'clock, tip your waistband down, and in a clockwise direction, we're going to go all the way around to 1, 2, 3. To your left, onto your left hip. 12 o'clock, 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4's down towards your feet, 5, 6 would be tailbone down toward the right, 7, 8, 9 o'clock's the right hip down, 10, 11, and 12. Again, all the way around clockwise. 1 toward the right, toward the left, 2, 3, 4, 5, tailbone down, 6, 7, 8, 9 o'clock on the right hip, 10, 11, 12, and let your pelvis come to neutral. Maybe ask yourself, were any of those numbers a bit glitchy? And if they were, you can tip your pelvis onto that number in that direction and move. Let's say, for instance, number 4 was a bit glitchy. You can take your hip down towards number 4 and then just move between 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4, and then 4 and 5 and 4 and 5 and 4 and 5. It's really fun. This is awesome. And then from 3 to 5, going right across 4. This is one of those ways you can start to smooth out glitches, and that's just an example here. Let your pelvis come back to neutral. If there's an area that has a glitch around a number, take your pelvis in the direction of that number and then work back and forth to the number right before it and right after it, back and forth. And we do need to go counterclockwise 1 or 2 times. Then we're almost done with this exploration today. Go ahead and tip your pelvis back to 12. One more time, waistband toward the floor. Then we're going to the right, like we're going backwards, over towards 11, 10, 9's the right hip down, 8, 7, 6 is the tailbone down, 5, 4, 3 over on the left hip, 2, 1, 12 o'clock's in the center, again to 11, 10, 9 down on the right, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3 on the left hip, 2, 1, 12 o'clock, and back to neutral. Same thing here. Maybe ask yourself, was any of the numbers in that counterclockwise direction a bit glitchy? And if it was, again, you want to take your body, your pelvis in the direction of that number, work on either side. So this is one of my favorite things to do when I'm laying on the floor flat. I just start to get curious about my pelvic mobility, looking to mobilize SI joints, sacroiliac joints, looking to mobilize where my sacrum meets my lumbar spine, looking to get my pelvis mobile in very subtle ways that have a huge influence on how the rest of my body moves. Check it out. Don't push into anything that causes pain, grimacing, flinching, resisting. Let this be easy. See how many directions your pelvis can start to move freely. We'll see you next time.